Hello! You're watching For the Love of Animals, the story about your favorite pets and animals. Today we're going to be talking about wildlife rehabilitation. I'm Darleen Pigford.
And I'm Greg Baur, and we want to tell our viewers about a couple of upcoming shows. We're going to be visiting with the Girl Scouts and seeing some of the work that they have done with animals, and something also a little unusual, photographing your pet. What kind of pictures can you get that maybe you could send a candid camera or something like that? But Darleen, you've mentioned that we have a wildlife rehabilitation today.
Yes, Greg, we have a very unusual show. We're going to be talking about people who have been licensed to take care of wildlife, and we're going to tell some intriguing stories. Why don't you introduce these special guests, Greg?
I'll be happy to, and Wicket can help introduce them,
Yes.
as you know, our resident dog. We have with us today Peggy and Henry Barbour, who live here in Paducah, and we might just mention that they are newlyweds plus 50 years.
That's right.
So congratulations to both of you for that.
Thank you.
And we're glad you're here today.
Yes.
We're glad to be here.
Why don't you tell us first of all about the pets that you currently have at home before we hear all those other wonderful stories.
Oh, all right. Right now we have some cockatiels that are 20 years old, 2 of those, and we have a parrot, a small little parrot, and that's about 16 years old.
Okay.
So the other animals, of course, when we moved back to Paducah, I couldn't keep my other animals.
Right.
And we had 2 wonderful dogs that lived to be 16 and 17 years old, but they both passed in the summer.
Okay.
But we get to love everybody else's animals as well.
Well, now, this is an intriguing title today. Tell us what it means to be a wildlife rehabilitator.
All right, well, I'll let him talk in a little bit. Ever since I've been a little girl, I've been fascinated with birds. I love animals and the birds, and I would watch in the summers, in the spring, I would watch the birds make a nest and see what kind of birds they were and what they did. You know, I was fascinated. And as I grew up, I became more and more interested in it. And then I found out years later that you had to have permits, federal and state, because all animals belong to the state. So you have to have those permits. All birds of prey, songbirds, water birds, anything that's federal. So when we moved to Paducah, that's been 31 years ago, we've decided to make this home. We love it here. And we had a place out in Smithland with acreage and by the water and everything. So the first animal, the bird that I ever was able to get was a great horned owl, which was named Jack, and it was blonde. And so I was able to teach it how to eat on its, own in the water and everything. But from then on, the purpose of rehabilitating was to help the game wardens, veterinarians, policemen, everybody, and you get on a list if you have these permits. And so you would be getting these phone calls. So they would be from possums to coons to skunks. We've had wolves, you name it, we've had it. Now, if you get a possum, like if these animals were all brought to me by people, loving people who found injured animals and they needed caring for. So I knew how to do a lot of the things. I do a lot of praying and everything, take care of it all. But I also have some wonderful veterinarians. And La Center at the Coffee Clinic is the Cunningham and Rogers, and then at Lone Oak is Dr. Missy Richardson, which was the birds mostly too, with everything else, and then Jimmy Golden. So through the years, so if they needed surgery or whatever, they would help. They'd do it for me. So it's been a rewarding. I've met wonderful people, and it's like a gift. When you take that little animal or something in your hand and it's injured, first thing I do is pray about it because I want it to make it. And I've had lots of things that they've said wouldn't make it, but they did.
And you keep these animals on your property?
Yes, at that time.
At that time.
At that time, and when I was in Whitcliffe, I had over 20 acres. And so the Henry's pot came in here. He's wonderful. He's very supportive. And he would build the cages and make them, you know, in the area that, because I wanted to make sure that these animals had plenty of room. I didn't want little small cramped up. And we tried to make them as natural as they could, you know. And you want to tell them a little bit about yours?
The chain link cages were 10 by 10 and 6 or 7 feet tall for single birds, and we had some that were in 10 by 20 foot cages if they had a broken wing that was healing and needed to have some flight opportunities, so that you made the cages long enough for them, gave them perches diagonally across the corners, plenty of opportunity for them to strengthen themselves rather than the kind of cage you normally think of as a small bird cage. These were outdoors in areas where they had fresh air, not too much sunlight. It was dappled shade, windbreak protection by vines on one end of the cages. So all those things come into consideration in setting the cage and taking care of the creatures.
And you built all this?
Well, we put
in your spare time?
It was the fun part of it. You put the panels of chain link together and cover and support and make sure nothing else can get in that you don't want in there and so on. So quite a bit of care to it, making sure, for instance, that anything that digs can't dig out from underneath by laying chain link on the ground underneath there so it can't dig out. Lots of consideration to take with each creature.
And the other thing that was really wonderful and patient in the winter when it would be freezing and it would be off from the house where you couldn't get the hoses running in the, you know, in that time of the year. And so the buckets for the deer and everything would be ice. So he'd go out there with hot water and
2 gallons of water. The one with the red cap was hot, and the one with the blue cap was cold. You melt the ice out and give them fresh water.
Yeah.
Oh my word!
It's very clear that this was a complete team effort.
Oh,
Indeed,
yeah.
it was.
Yeah, he's very supportive and loving, and he loved what I did. And he's a research forester, retired, and so when we go anywhere, he's looking up in the tree to see what it was, and I was seeing what was in it. But when I did this too, because of these permits, I had all the permits you could have, holding, educational. I still have my educational permit. And there would be the type like birds or something you wouldn't want to imprint on you, because a lot of these you were able to get back into the wild again. So there would be one section for the animals or birds where people were not allowed to be around them, because I wanted them to stay wild, eat the right foods, and be able to survive. Birds that came that had already been wild, broken wings that had to be recovered, it wasn't as hard because they knew how to eat and catch things on their own. And the other ones, you would take care of them or do what you had to necessarily for that point. But then as they started eating, you'd leave them in the areas where they would, you know, not get used to people or animals or things, you know, dogs or something. And then we had, for the holding permit and educational, you had to have the children. I've had thousands of school children from Carlisle, Ballard, McCracken. I've gone to schools and everything like that. And children are wonderful. I love their stories. I love what we do with them. But they could adopt. They could adopt some of the ones that were not releasable. So that was educational. And I had the female deer, but never the bucks, because they can, in the rut season, that could be, you know, too dangerous. But the kids learned, and they would bring food like acorns for in the winter, the white acorns for the deer, because that builds up the fat and everything, protection. And so they would collect it and bring it.
Wonderful.
And we're going to hear some wonderful stories.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But we need to take a break.
And let's hear a story about Lilly the lamb.
This was one of their pets.
Hi, my name is Lilly, and I'm a 16-year-old sheep. My twin and I were born in 1992. Unfortunately, my mother rejected me, and I was left on my own. A kind person brought me to Peggy, and she nursed me back to health with goat's milk. I was so lucky even to survive. Peggy took really good care of me, and I followed her everywhere she went. When it came time to shear me every year, Peggy would invite local school children to see the shearing. Jane was the lady who did it. Unfortunately, Peggy and Henry moved from the farm in 2002, and I was broken-hearted. But Jane took me in, and I still live with her today. Thank you, Peggy, for helping me survive, and thank you, Jane, for allowing me to have a wonderful, forever happy home.
Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed that wonderful little story about Lily and the fact that she's still doing well today.
That's our first lamb.
Yes, our first lamb. Now, Peggy, we were talking just before the break about some of these wonderful stories that you have. Why don't we get started with that? And you mentioned, first of all, one about a turkey vulture.
Oh my goodness, that was quite an experience. Woods and wetland near Katie's, I rehabilitated for them as well with the animals. And so they called me up one morning and asked if I could come and get a turkey vulture. Well, this was a new experience for me, and we went up there together and got it, and the wing had been broken. So we brought it back, and we were saying, well, what do you feed these? And they said, roadkill. And I thought, roadkill? So next thing, so on the way coming back, there was a newly dead possum. So we picked it up. We flew home.
Oh, boy.
So, had to, you know, but that's what they eat. They're scavengers. They keep. They're very clean birds, and they do keep everything cleaned up. And so, one experience I had one time is I was getting a new refrigerator, and the man came up in the driveway and knocked on the door and said, "We have your refrigerator, but lady, do you know you've got dead animals on your yard?" And I said, yes, my friends threw them there. So Henry, the people that weren't, tell them about that, what they did, honey.
Well, they would, when they found a rabbit or something else, especially at lunchtime, they'd drop it off on the lawn for me to pick up and carry back to the cage. So that's why they were there.
Was food for the turkey.
For the
I
turkey.
would travel with a little tub in the back of the pickup truck, and I saw one the right size, usually a rabbit or a small animal that had been injured or killed on the road that was fresh. Those were the kind.
And what happened to the turkey vulture?
Well, what he did, so we would, well, let me tell you about the refrigerator.
Okay.
Anyway, well, when the man, so I had to take them back there to the cage and show them what it was for. So they were relieved, so I got my refrigerator. Okay. But I kept it for several years, and then this was good for the school children, you know, to come and see them too.
Yeah.
So I at Land Between the Lakes. I've done things with them up there for years, and so I donated it to it years ago, and it's still alive. So
Is it?
anybody going up there, and I can get to see it.
Oh, okay.
So
And what was the turkey vulture's name?
we called it Pretty Boy.
Pretty Boy. Okay.
Missy Richardson had did she had to do some amputation on the wing and all, and we said, well, what are we going to name this bird? And we both decided Pretty Boy would be a good name for it.
All right, so Pretty Boy did lose his wing.
Yeah, so
he
it was,
couldn't go back
he
in the wild.
couldn't be released
I
again,
see.
so that's why they are able to take it. And it was the only turkey vulture that they had at that time. They have some other kind, but that. So it's nice to be able to go and see it.
All right. Do you still get roadkill on your lawn now?
No, we
And
we
have
don't
it.
want any,
If I
do we?
have it now, I wonder. And please, nobody send any.
That's right. Okay. You were telling me about Precious.
Oh, Precious was, this time of the year, the fawns have been born.
Right.
And I often tell people, please don't pick them up. You know, the mother will go away for several hours and the babies will lie there in the ground and just being very quiet while she's gone. A lot of people are very good-hearted, worried about them, and want to protect them.
Right.
But when they pick them up, they make an orphan out of them. But in the case of Precious, she had been in a field in Carlisle County, and they had mowed. And when they came back, they had seen this little fawn, and its foot was half off.
Oh,
So it
dear.
was brought to me, and I put a tourniquet on it and took care of it to keep it from going into shock. And then the next day, Dr. Rogers, he went ahead and amputated the foot.
The leg.
The leg. It was the leg up, wasn't it? Yeah. In fact, let me see. I think I have a picture. I should have had
It was
that right there.
so the leg wouldn't flop around. It was taken completely
See,
off.
it's this one right here.
Uh-huh.
And so when I got it and brought it home, and I thought, this poor little thing, how will it manage with
Right.
just 3 legs?
3 legs.
And I was out in the yard, and it got on the ground, and it went running. And if we hadn't have had the pine and the bushes to stop it, but I thought, no, I don't have to worry now. So anyway,
That's an amazing story.
she lived to be longer than most deer, live. But when in captivity, most things do because they're so well taken care of. But we had this tall fencing, and our area, like I said, is near a pond, so they can get water and everything.
Right.
And we thought the fencing was pretty tall, but obviously not tall enough, because to our surprise, she had twins. So she had 2 fawns.
Oh, my word.
So we never let them get tame, used to
Yes.
us and everything. And then when they begin to lose their spots and everything, they can be released back into the wild.
Okay. But now,
So-
Precious couldn't be released back
No,
in-
because of
the
that.
3 legs.
That's right.
And so she
But-
lived with you
Uh-huh.
all of her life.
And all the children just loved her. And that's one of the ones they adopted and want to come and pet her and take care of her and everything.
Now, by adopted, what do you mean?
Well, it means that a group of children say, we want to
Oh.
adopt a animal, and then we want to take care, so we're going to bring food.
They don't take the animal
No,
home.
no, it stays there, but they
Stays there.
come. And
Okay.
like I said, I've had thousands of school children through the years and all. I've done this.
Uh-huh.
And they come and they get to see the animal and they feel close to
Gotcha.
it, and you know.
That's a great educational experience.
Oh, it's wonderful. One of the things I love so much about the children and all, my own experience, I was in an orphanage. And then later, and I realized children need this. And there
Yes,
are so
yes.
many times when children go through certain periods of times and it's hard for them to trust and all. If they can get an animal that they can love and trust, and that animal, loves
Yes, I
them
know what you
back.
mean. Yes.
And I've seen this happen so many times.
Yes.
So-
I agree. There's a special bond between any human and an animal,
That's
particularly
right.
a child.
It can warm your heart
Right.
where nothing else can,
Well, warm my heart with the story about Peep.
Oh, all right. This is where you get to talk. Tell them how
All
I
right,
got that.
the way it started,
Okay.
over on the Boot Heel in Missouri, a wood duck had laid a dozen eggs over there. I guess it was a mallard duck back in
Okay.
a dozen eggs. And the fellows found this in the area we were working in, and it was going to be disked, so they wrapped the eggs up in their jackets, and by the end of the day brought them to us, and we put them in a regular incubator for hen's eggs.
Okay.
And Peggy picked it up from there. She marked the eggs, rolled them on time, incubated them, and all 12 hatched. But the 12th one was late, and that's where the story comes in.
Okay, well, I also had some chickens. So I put a chicken egg. I had candled it, and I knew it was
Right.
all right, so I fertile. So I put it in there. And when they all hatched, and then the smallest mallard was real little, and the other ducks wouldn't accept it. And here's the little chicken. So Ballard School there had made me 2 big boxes. So I put them in different, I put Peep and Quack in one box. And they started eating and everything with each other, and they became best of pals. So when they were outside, and when Quack wanted to swim, I had a little pool, wading pool.
Uh-huh.
And so I'd have to put a board across the wading pool so that Pete could sit up there where Quack was, because I was afraid it was going to drown. So everywhere they went, they stayed together in the same pen, they slept together and everything. So they both lived to old age and just died natural causes. but that was fun.
Oh,
Well, what a story.
Yes, absolutely. I think we need to take a short break at this point, and
We're
we
gonna-
have a
Story about doves.
yes,
And this one is a forget-me-not.
yes, it is.
Stay tuned. Take a listen.
In 1995, Peace and Joy were born as ring-tailed doves. However, their mother rejected them, and so Peggy was left to help them survive. Peggy said many prayers, and they did survive. Peace and Joy soon became surrogate parents to some mourning doves that were given to Peggy to care for. Peace and Joy passed away in 2002, but they will always be remembered for their love and compassion for the doves.
Welcome back. You've just heard a wonderful tale about two doves, Peace and Joy. And as is our custom, when we have a Forget-Me-Not on the show, Henry and Peggy have made several contributions to Project Hope here. And that's all that you have to do if you want to have your pet. So if you would like to have your pet remembered on our show, you can contact us at 270-443-8330 or at Greg_Baur at Comcast.net by email.
And all of these shelters need all the help and donations they can get. So thank you, Peggy and Henry.
Yes.
We really appreciate it.
Well, I think we're going to.
Yeah, let's have some more stories.
This one's about BJ the Blue Jay.
A blue jay. Blue jays are my favorite birds in the world. I know they have a bad reputation, and they say, well, they'll come at you and all. And I said, but they're good parents. When their babies are fledgling, learning to fly, they're protecting them. When we lived in Jackson, Tennessee, we lived in a house with over 100, wasn't a log house, had many chimneys, and I had this blue jay that would live outside but come in and sleep in the evening. So
And sleep inside the house.
Sleep in a cage in the evening. I wanted to protect it. So anyway, but it would be free so it could fly and do all. So one day I listened through the wall. I thought I heard my BJ. Well, I had taught a whistle. I teach all my birds whistles, and they respond back. And so I told Henry, I said, it sounds like the bird is in the wall. And will you go up on the roof? So you went up there.
I went up and I looked down the old chimney that had been closed off in the kitchen but was still open as a flue. And you whistled and I could hear it whistle down there, but I couldn't see anything. So you came up on the roof too.
So I said, I'm going. He said, I didn't see anything, so I went up there. Well, I got up on the roof and I thought, oh, my poor baby, I can't get it. What am I going to do? So I started praying, which I always pray on everything. And an idea came to me. So I said, honey, go get the smallest Easter bag you can get. Basket bag. Basket.
Okay.
And anyway, and get a rope. So I tied it and I put it down the chimney and I kept whistling. And the bird jumped in it. And when it came up, it was full of soot, soot and everything. So I gave it a bath. But I got my baby back. But it lived around there most of the summer, and then it had other blue jays came in. So I remember that one evening we went out there. It came over to where we were, sat on the car, and was whistling, and it was saying goodbye. It was going off to be with its own.
Oh, what an intriguing
Yes.
story.
That is wonderful.
BJ, wow.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. You're dealing with wild animals.
Yes.
I would not, this is completely out of my league. What does a person do today if they come across, quote, one of these wild animals? What advice would you give to the public?
All right. One of the main things that I do is with these animals is do a lot of research and learning on diseases. And in my book, Animal Crackers, which I did with the Farley Explorers, and that was Tina Haynes, wonderful teacher, and that was a group that we met and everything came. Well, the stories, the illustration of the children and my stories are in here. Well, I've got a section in here talking about domesticated and wild animals.
Okay.
And wild animals can carry diseases. They can bite you because they're
Right.
wild. So it was, I didn't want the children going home and seeing a cute little possum or something.
squirrel.
And thinking, yeah, because they'll bite
Raccoon.
you. And so, no, I didn't want to do that, so I
Right.
realized. So I've gone to some of the health centers too and given information, because if you ever see an animal that shouldn't be approaching you, do not, like a fox or a skunk or a raccoon, because a raccoon can have rabies and
Exactly.
they don't get sick. And the only way you know if you're bitten is you have to get shots, or either you have to have their head cut off. So, so you learn about these parasites and everything with them. So it's a lot of responsibility, a lot of work, and a lot of love. But the award is wonderful when they get well and they can be released again.
Well,
So-
if I find an injured animal, say a possum or a squirrel in my backyard, who do I call?
Okay.
Other than Peggy and Henry.
Well, since we've moved back here, and I do not have the permits anymore, but I still, like
So
I
I
said,
can't call
still
you.
have the educational, what I can still give talks, go
Right.
to schools with all the information and things I have. But Jerry Clark is the McCracken wildlife, fish and wildlife person.
Okay.
Lone Oak Animal Clinic, and over there at Land Between the Lakes. If you call these people,
Okay.
they have a listing of someone that is permitted to be able to take these, and they'll be able to help you.
And that's what's important.
Exactly.
Handling wildlife, you must have a permit and have the training.
If you,
I should not do that.
if
'Cause
you do it, not only could you endanger yourself, they're protected, and you could be fined.
Ooh, okay.
Very fined for this. So, leave them alone. Let someone who knows what they're doing take care of them.
Well, as you mentioned earlier, the animals are either the property of the state or the federal
That's
government.
right.
Yes.
Exactly.
So there are
and I think a
laws
lot of people don't
regarding
realize
that.
that. And I know with coons, sometimes they feel, well, I've had them and so had them, but there's that one out of 1,000 or something that could have it, and you wouldn't want to be the one who got the,
Right.
Well, Greg, time flies.
Oh.
I just can't believe we're at
We-
the end of this show.
We could go on for hours.
Yes, we
with this, I
could with
tell
your
you.
stories from both of you.
We would like to thank you two very much, Henry and Peggy Barbour, for sharing time with us this afternoon and some of these wonderful stories. And thank you so much for the work that you've done as wildlife rehabilitators. And we know that many animals have benefited
Have
a great
been
deal.
blessed because
Yes,
of you and
because
saved
of you
because
too.
of
Well,
you.
I feel
Thank you for
blessed
your good
too.
work.
Okay.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Well, Greg, it just gets better and better, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. So, unfortunately, it looks like we're going to have
At
to
the
sign
end.
off for now. And we would like our viewers to remember, give your pet a little extra love today,
And
every day. See you next time.
Bye.